damn it's cold, is what these guys will never admit. These animals live in the piss-freezing, bone-creaking, nut-eating Arctic, where species like the pussy Homo sapiens would freeze to death without their pussy jackets and coats. So let's talk about it. Let's get this one out of the way. The blubber, the two-layered fur, their black skin. Yes, that's right, polar bears have black skin. Is all made for this hot, dong shrinking environment. Their nose is one of the best in the natural world, being able to smell prey under a few feet of ice. Their paws are made for traversing on snow as well as for swimming. And of course, if they slap you, your head will be further from your body than ever before. They are solitary predators, mainly hunting the guys that killed Osama bin Laden by waiting at their breathing holes and then pouncing on them. Polar bears can go a long time without food, usually barely eating anything during the summer month when the ice melts. Females will dig dens when they are pregnant, and then the cubs will spend the first few months there. During this time, the mother drastically lowers her metabolic rate, not eating pretty much anything that entire time. Beforehand, they of course feed intensively in the spring and summer, getting as fat as possible, and then the mothers bury themselves, like I just said, while the rest of the bears fast above the ground on the surface, may be scraping by with a bit of food.
Нормально все? Нормально, говорю, все? Рыбачишь?
Again, blubber, but this time, even more. Their flippers don't have any hairs and are quite rough textured in order to make it easier to traverse on ice. Now, as far as dealing with the cold, they don't need much more. They eat clams and other sources of food they can find on the seafloor. This is aided by their massive mustache. These guys could definitely be mistaken with Viltrumites, and this mustache is actually just extremely long whiskers, and this is used to sense things on the ocean floor. They also often forage in groups, stirring up the seafloor around one another, gathering in huge groups. They use vocalizations to communicate, oftentimes for mating rituals or dominance contests between the alphas. Now, the other two animals I've talked about so far have one major advantage for dealing with the cold, and that is their massive size. Many animals living in extreme cold will grow larger than their counterparts living in hotter environments because it is easier to maintain a higher body temperature when your body is larger. However, Arctic foxes have other ways of minimizing heat loss. They have shorter legs, snouts, and ears compared to other foxes, and they grow the densest fur out of all animals in the animal kingdom. Also, they use their huge tail as a blanket. Now, Arctic foxes probably experience the greatest seasonal change out of the three that I've talked about because their fur completely changes length and color. They eat pretty much anything they can find, from lemmings, small birds' eggs, carrion obviously, and pretty much anything else you can think of. And of course, they are famous for constantly diving into snow in order to catch prey. Now, this requires that they can detect prey under 10 to 12 centimeters of snow. They do this with their absolutely incredible hearing and, of course, their smell. They feed the most during the fall or autumn to make themselves nice and plump for the harsh winter. They can even limit blood flow to their limbs and probably their penis. Snowy owls are covered in feathers from head to toe. Literally, their toes are also covered with feathers. They're extremely well insulated like the Arctic fox. Unlike most other owls, they hunt during the daytime, which isn't actually all that surprising considering there is a period of the year up there where there is 24 hours of sunlight. They are also migratory, having different wintering and breeding grounds, usually following rodents, mainly lemmings. Actually, that might be called a nomadic lifestyle because they don't go from location to location, but follow something else. Anyways, this is useful because snowy owls need a lot of food to keep up with their fast metabolism, which is very fast because that's how they maintain their body heat. In fact, if they cannot find enough food before breeding season, then they can delay the breeding season, or the breeding season might be skipped altogether. Beluga whales have a layer of blubber that accounts for almost 40% of their entire body weight, and extremely thick skin. All this, of course, helps them to store body heat. A very unique feature of the beluga whale is its lack of a dorsal fin. Instead, they have a dorsal ridge. They evolved this way to be able to swim underneath and break ice, without the risk of injury to themselves. Their weirdly shaped head is designed for echolocation, and echolocation is of course used for navigation and to find prey. When they dive down into the depths like Johnny Sins dives into some overused, their heart rate slows down dramatically from 100 beats per minute to only about 12 to 20 beats per minute. Their blood is capable of storing more oxygen than most creatures, which is essential for them in their environment. They can actually collapse their lungs while diving in order to prevent them from breathing in too much nitrogen. And they shed. You're probably thinking of fur when you think of shedding. That's how we usually talk about shedding when it comes to mammals. But no. Each summer, they shed their outer layer of epidermis in order to maintain their insulating skin and prevent parasites from calling it a home. Belugas reside near coastal areas during the summer since these areas provide them with more prey and fewer predators. The predators mainly being orcas. Also, this is usually when their pods grow to larger sizes. In the winter, they stay near ice edges, and this is where their non-existent dorsal fins come into play, and the larger pods of the summer season now diverge into a bunch of smaller ones. As fish, Arctic char have some adaptations that mammals don't. Their body is extremely streamlined and their fin is forked deeply in order to be able to move in colder currents. Their skin also produces an anti-freeze glycoprotein that prevents them from just freezing to death, like the fish in a supermarket, for example. This means they can survive in water down to -1 degree Celsius. They also have a lot of fat stores, but at this point I'm guessing that isn't very surprising. Their kidneys and gills are adapted to both fresh and salt water. They migrate from freshwater to sea after spawning, and then feeding until they make the return journey in the fall. However, there are some populations that exist in freshwater exclusively. They also exhibit schooling behaviors in order to conserve energy and protect themselves against predators. Their metabolism is extremely slow in order to conserve energy, especially during the winter. Anyways, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say. If you want a part 2, like, subscribe, all that. And goodbye.